behalf of the Morgantown Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us. We want to offer special thanks to Matt, who we are joining with this day and offering our time together. You'll note that some of our representatives here have also strong ties to Preston County, and that's because Matt embraces both Montague and Preston County, so we also welcome them to our platform today. And then also My Bank First United, we are very pleased, and to Kim Moyer, thank you so much for helping us make this happen, and to all the rest of you for being out with us today. There are a few things I want to tell you real quickly, and one of them is, if you haven't found it yet, you need to go find somewhere across this community Morgantown Magazine. It is the second chamber edition of Morgantown Magazine. It's got some great stories. It's got great stories about our award winners coming up for this year's annual dinner, January the 29th. And so we hope you're planning on joining us there. Some wonderful stories about Morgantown, some great history of the area. Please go out somewhere today. I'm going to put that right there. And then I'm going to do my little bit, and then I'm going to toss it over here. But my little bit is always this, and that is, my parents raised me to say, when you invite guests into your living room, you show the hospitality to be kind to them. We've invited these guests into our living room. And they've graciously taken the time to show up and be here. I don't care what question you do ask. I don't care what details you want to know about. Matter of fact, I hope you want to know a lot of things. I just ask that you project a sense of civility and kindness in your question. I've never had an experience with this chamber that hasn't been exactly that. But I still feel the need to remind everybody when we get together. Let's make this just another tremendous day with the Morgantown Area Chamber of Commerce. And last but not least, on my behalf, you know, I'm actually Facebook friends with almost everybody across this area up here. Okay, I connect to them, and I just want to call something to your attention. You know, it's in the next starting in January for 60 or 70 days after that, we'll get really upset at decisions they made and decisions they didn't make. And ideas we thought they should have ran with, and ideas we thought they should have just left alone. But the reality is, and I know this by watching their Facebook pages, you also have people before you who recently got married, who are starting to raise grandkids, and who are still raising children, and who are celebrating life in any number of ways. And in the midst of all of their careers, all of their community commitments, they take the time to go to Charleston and try their best to represent us. So before we begin this morning, will you join me in thanking them for their service? Before I toss to Ashley, Tom Bloom's assured me we can do this in about 30 seconds. I want Tom to share something we just learned this morning from last night. Tom?
First, it's a thank you to the legislators. Captain Joe Statler, who worked with Charlene Marshall to pass a bill, which you all passed last year, about naming a bridge, the James Wickline Bridge. Then the Netherlands came over and they made a film of it. And at 5 o'clock this morning, I just received notice that the film, the documentary, received a Golden Award from the International Independent Film Awards in Los Angeles, and it will be premiered, as it says here, in Morgantown, West Virginia at the Met Theater, and that all came because of you. And also it has a picture of Joe Statler, Charlene Marshall, Eldon Cowan, and Bob Beach, and Joe has assured me that afterwards he will be signing autographs for all of you. But thank you again. Those are the little things you do that make a big impact in our community.
Moving from one positive note to the next, I am very pleased to have as the chair of the Chamber's Government Affairs Committee, Ashley Hardesty Odell. And Ashley, if you'll come at this time.
Good Good morning, everyone. As Dan mentioned, my name is Ashley Hardesty Odell. I'm a lawyer who practices here with the law firm of Bowles Rice, and I serve as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee for the Chamber. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about what our committee is doing and try to recruit some new members, in fact. Our committee hosts events like this one this morning to help connect our business community with our elected officials. And I'm so pleased to have the turnout that we have from both our legislators and the business community here this morning. We also work with our members to help them be informed about candidates for various political offices. And stay tuned for more on this in the spring. We have some elections coming up in May for offices such as our judiciary candidates, Board of Education, sheriff, and some other offices. So please be looking for more information about that. Finally, our committee takes a look at key policy issues that are important to the business community, and we make recommendations about those to the Chamber Board. We work very closely with the Chamber's Transportation Committee, which focuses on what's a big issue for our community, roads and infrastructure. So if you are interested in getting involved in our community, or in our committee, we're always looking for fresh faces, fresh ideas, and if you would like to be involved, please talk to me or to Dan or to Jack, and we'll get you on the committee and start working with you. Now, I'm going to turn things over to a man with whom we're all familiar, a man who is always in the know, and who really asks the tough questions, my friend Scott the Interrogator Road Truck. He'll be moderating our panel this morning. Thank you, Scott.
The Interrogator. Well, good morning, everybody. I says that magazine says it all. Dazzling development. We've had so much good news in this area, and a whole lot of it is attributable to what I think is almost unique in this area, and that is the public-private academic nonprofit partnership we have. You always find everybody around the table. I'd like to thank the folks assembled here because, as Danny said, they have private lives, and here we have citizen legislators. North of here, we have full-time legislators in Pennsylvania, but these folks have to do it while they maintain a life back home, and that is really hard work. And I think from the beginning, we should tell them how much we appreciate them doing that. The resumes are on the table. You can read those. We will not go down reading them from here. What we're going to do is we're going to salvage as much time as we can so they can tell you what's on their minds, and then you can share with them what's on your mind so we can have a conversation. We were targeted to go to 9 o'clock, but Jack, I think we could stretch it a little bit, right?
Yes, sir.
So I've asked each one of them if they would take 2 or 3 minutes and share with you what they believe is most important, what they're working on, what they think affects this area the most. And we're going to start on that end with Delegate Joe Statler and come right down.
Well, thanks everyone for coming out this morning to listen to us, and I would hope that we had all the answers, but I will give you the warning ahead of time that we don't have all the answers. Maybe some of the rest of them up there through there does. What's most important to me this morning, again, I'm Delegate Joe Statler, is what you're seeing out there. Recently, my campaign, and I guess it's not a campaign, but we have done a survey. And on that survey, we went online, went on the phone, we talked to people, and we're asking questions. And the one thing that pops up most of the time on that survey when you're asking the questions, it's a wide range, but overwhelmingly the number one issue is roads. And you know, we could stand up here and I think we could say roads, roads, and more roads. And what's going to come out of that, and we're still working on that. That was something that I felt strongly on when I went to Charleston last year. I did not accomplish nearly as much as I would have liked to. I do believe the audit that's being done now, that when it comes out, it's going to answer a lot of questions that everybody sitting around the tables could tell you the answer to in the issue. A lot of it's going to come out, I believe, is going to be in the management area, and also how the decisions are made on what roads are worked on and when. But the important thing in this county, I believe, to us, and especially in this Morgantown area that we've really got to focus on, is let's look around. We're blessed in the development that's going on. We truly are. But there's only one way that's going to continue to happen, and that is if we get the infrastructure down. We're simply stretching the infrastructure to a breaking point in this area. So we're going to have to work on infrastructure. And that will be one of the things that I work strongly on this legislative session going down, is getting something in place through the Chamber. The Chamber Transportation Committee has been working, and we're going to get something in place that hopefully that we can help ourselves within this county to take care of that problem. Also, education. I'd be remiss to stand up here and say that I'm not strong on education. I spent 10 years on the Board of Education along with Nancy Walker back here, and I'm glad to see she's in here. And I know this is probably not an area that I should go into, but I will tell you that we have an excess levy coming up next year. I won't do a lot of speaking on that today, but I will tell you, be aware of it. It's very important to the system. But after saying that, we have a lot of issues in this state, and education is one of the areas that's going to help us bring us out of the problems that we are in. And we've got to focus on education and how we're delivering that model of education. I, for one, am truly strong on believing that in the state of West Virginia, when less than half of the students can read at a proficiency level coming out of the 3rd grade, the first place we should attack is that. So I feel strongly on that. And with that said, I've got a lot of other issues, and glad to speak with people one-on-one, can stay afterwards and talk. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Summers.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and for inviting us to spend the morning with you. I'm sure we will all address many of the same issues, so I'll just talk about one thing particular after I add on about the roads. We mentioned this last year about doing this audit, and so I sponsored that bill to audit the Department of Highways, and I think we've already found one of our inefficiencies there. They haven't been able to get us all the data we need, so we don't have an audit yet. The biggest thing in our state is we have to continue to try to pass legislation to make our state more business friendly. And I know in the past different things have been done, little piecemeal things, and we haven't got the reaction that we wanted, but we can get there. We are about as low as we're going to get in this state, or perhaps we're going to get a little bit lower with the amount of dollars that we're bringing in. We've got to find a way that people want to come to West Virginia. The only way to provide for all these needs that we have, the education, the healthcare, the roads, the infrastructure, is to get people to want to come here. So that's going to be one of my biggest priorities.
Good morning. I'm Senator Bob Williams. I represent the 14th Senatorial District, which includes Taylor, Tucker, Barber, Preston, Mineral Grant, Hardy, and Montague County. Now, in Montague County, Senator Seipholt and I have just the southeastern corner of Mon County, from Brookhaven down to the Halleck area. And there's a couple of issues. I'm sure everyone in this room would mention roads as an important issue. I represent Preston County, and a piece of Montague County, so roads are critical to the development of what. I don't think this is working, Jack. That's all right. I can call it really loud. I think roads are one of the critical issues we have, but I'm not going to speak about that. I'm not going to talk about the budget. Other folks, I'm sure, will talk about that. Two issues I wanted to talk about is small business development that we need in West Virginia, in this area, and throughout the state. One of the things that we must do, and Joe mentioned infrastructure, but one thing we sometimes don't think about with infrastructure is access to the internet and access to broadband. And it might surprise some of you that I get as many calls from my district in Mon County about folks who do not have access to the internet within 5 miles of Morgantown is just absolutely unacceptable. But we have that situation throughout the state where folks either don't have access to the internet or have very slow access, and we have to figure out a plan that's going to increase that access to broadband so we can continue to grow these small businesses. No small business can grow today without having access to high quality internet services. The other thing I want to mention is I've been very interested in how we can control the financial exploitation of the elderly. Several years ago, I was the lead sponsor on a piece of legislation that created financial exploitation of the elderly as a crime, and made it easier for bankers and prosecutors to talk about that when it was being recognized by the bankers that somebody was taking advantage of an elderly person. I'm pleased to report that yesterday I read in the paper that down in southern West Virginia, a lady was charged under the piece of legislation that we were one of the lead sponsors on, was charged with felony financial exploitation of a group of elderly people, and I hope she's going to jail. But those are the kind of things we're going to work on. There's a lot more to do in that area, so we're going to continue to work on that. I appreciate everybody being here and look forward to the questions. Also, I wanted to say I knew Scott Roadtruck before he was very intimidating.
He was my Troop 58 pack leader in Kaiser, West Virginia. Boy Scout, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Certainly glad to be here. I want to thank the Chamber for putting on this on. I'm Kent Leonhardt. I'm the senator from the 2nd Senatorial District, which includes a couple more counties than Bob has, but area-wise I think we're getting pretty close. I've got, as far as Monongalia County is concerned, I wrap around half of Morgantown, but I don't have Morgantown proper. It goes around through Cheat Lake in the western end of the county, and then down to Wetzel, Marshall, Ritchie, Dodger, Tyler County, Gilmer, Calhoun, and half of Marion County as well. You know, you've heard some of the same issues, and I think most of the legislators up here are going to have all the same issues. But I want to talk a little bit about and add rural health. We've got a great resource here with WVU and the health system and Mon General. But what we're hurting is in the rural area, and my district is very rural. So we're going to be looking at ways to improve that, particularly, and again, for the elderly that we have in the state, that they're losing their health care as doctors retire in rural areas. So we're going to be looking at ways to bring the nursing profession up to par with other states to where we can get that health care access to the rural citizens of West Virginia. At the same time, and I know PEIA is a big issue, but along with that is I've been studying and talking to various pharmacists. We've got a problem with program benefit management. And where it's costing our citizens, and it's costing our small pharmacies in particular, to even be able to stay in business. And as we know, small businesses are the key to the economic engine here in West Virginia. We have a lot of work to do in these areas, but I think as I'm tying these threads together, I think there's some savings in the PEIA issue if we can get the program benefit management. And hate to say it, but not everybody's going to be happy with what comes out of the bill. I had a discussion with the chair of the Senate Health Committee yesterday. He says, we're probably not going to make everybody happy, but if both sides are unhappy, we probably got it right. But anyway, those are some of the things that I'd like to add to the discussion. There's a lot of work to do, and I'll pass it on to Senator Beach.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the invitation. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to all those. Last night, many of us here on the panel shared a similar event at Fairmont State Campus. And one of the questions was, what can higher education do to help improve the economic development across the state of West Virginia? And if I was to prepare a Christmas list, as I said last night, that would be to take what we do here in North Central West Virginia, because we're all very blessed to live here in this community with WVU and Fairmont State, Pierpont, as an economic engine for this community. And just to be able to replicate that across the state, but that takes money, obviously. And it takes 134 people on the same page, along with the governor, to say, hey, this is our priority, to create education and replicate what we're doing here in North Central West Virginia across the state and other institutions, and for those institutions that we work with here in the community to share their ideas and their success stories. But that's key. Obviously, budget is right there with it as well, and I'll leave that to my good friend here to my left to speak on the budget matters. Other issues that I intend to address are, I'm going back and readdressing fees on DMV. We passed a piece of legislation in 2011 that the governor vetoed, and many of us up here voted in favor of the passage. Had that bill passed with the governor's signature, that would have been about $300 million we would have had to work with over the past 5 or 6 years. That's nothing to be, to scoff off. That's real dollars, folks. So we're going to go back and readdress that. Because I say that because We all know that the federal highway bill has been passed, but folks, you have to remember that, and while I'm optimistic that the state of West Virginia will get a lot of dollars, it's matching dollars, folks, and we're whittling away at the base. So we're not going to be able to draw down the dollars we anticipate unless we do something positive. And there's a lot of things that we've worked on here locally that we'd like to take back to the legislature and see if we can't move it. A couple smaller issues I intend to work on is a little one that I'm actually working with teachers trying to craft a bill. I don't have it finished yet. Is food pantries in the school. Who better, especially in southern West Virginia, those 9 counties where we have unemployment in excess of 15%. Who better than the teachers, guidance counselors, principals to know what kids are going home without food? And if they could just walk to the food pantry, drop, inconspicuously drop a couple cans of something, box goods into their backpack before they go home every evening, I think that would do a lot for some of the poverty situations we have in southern West Virginia. Another issue that is actually close to my wife and I is adults who have autism. And once they turn 18, they're an adult, but they still have autism, and they're still dealing with a host of issues. And they're preyed upon. And Senator Williams mentioned the senior citizens who are preyed upon. But these folks are, drawn outside the state, and who knows what happens to them. And our good friend, the sheriff, they can't do anything unless we give them the authority. So what we would like to do is create some type of system, an alert system, that would allow the sheriff, once this is triggered, to investigate what's going on. And that's a couple smaller issues I'm working on. Of course, transportation is prominent for me. Thank you again.
Good morning. My name's Roman Prezioso. I'm the boss counterpart here in the 13th District of Marion and Montague County. I think the major concern, just hold on to this mic. I want to put it on my lapel, but I better run. I think the major concern of the state and the major challenge that we're going to have this session is trying to balance this budget. I've had the opportunity to work on the budget for probably the past 5 years, and we're seeing sort of a trend right now. The November general revenue collections came in at about $22 million behind, bringing the total aggregate to $114 million for the fiscal year. Now, if this trend continues, and we've got all the statistics that shows that, where this thing's heading, we could end up at the end of the year with a minimum $250 million with a ceiling of $400 million. That's major. We're going to have to go back into this session, do supplemental appropriations out of next year's budget, and sort of backfill this budget. And regardless of who's in power, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, it almost seems like it's a perfect storm out there right now. We've addressed a lot of the issues over the years to try to make this state business friendly, but some things are happening right now that cause us major concern. The coal industry is taking a major hit. The severance taxes are coming in way below estimates. With that, coal miners are being laid off. The personal income tax that are being paid by these miners are way behind. So with the idea of all this money that we need not being there, we're going to have to do something, either raise taxes or cut some additional programs. And I would like to work very closely, and I believe I will, with the administrator or with the leadership now, to try to look at all different aspects of what we can do to bring this budget into compliance and balance it out. But we've got some major obstacles that we've got to look towards, and I'm looking forward to working basically with the budget. I've got a ton of statistics here. If the questions are asked, I will certainly be happy to share those with you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Krachava. I'm a state delegate in Montague County, representing Montague County. Got recently elected last year, and one of the things that I plan on working on this session, I think you've heard a lot about it, and you probably drove over some of these on the way over here, the potholes and the other problems with the infrastructure here locally. I've worked very hard over the last several months. As soon as I got back from the session, it's just like the world exploded, and the roads were just terrible, and I had calls after calls after calls, and so a lot of that has been addressing those basic infrastructure problems. Working with the Department of Highways, I've developed a pretty good relationship with the folks within the DOH, communicating with them basically on a weekly basis. Started working with the auditors. They were doing this DOH audit back in August, and I've been in close communication with them, making sure that they got the appropriate information that our constituents or my constituents were communicating to me and sharing information back and forth that I thought that they needed to know, and focus their attention on. A couple of those findings actually are they are complete with the audit. That is, it actually completed last week. They presented to the legislature, not the legislature, but the legislative audit team last Friday. Some of that data is going to be available soon, and so I know that there's a plan before the session starts to address the audit findings to the legislature. And I think I've talked broadly about what those findings are with them already. A lot of the stuff that you probably are already aware of. Some of it you're not. Over the next several weeks, a lot of that stuff will start coming out. One of my priorities is to take those findings and make sure that we put them into place so they're impactful for the folks here in the community. Obviously, one of the most important facets of a thriving economy is infrastructure that is adequate. And so I think we would all agree that we need to improve that. Another issue that I intend on working on, I've been working very closely with the Finance Committee in the House side, and just as Roman works in the Senate side on coming up with ideas on ways that we can address this budget issue. This budget issue is, that's probably one of the worst, probably the worst that you've been in the legislature for years. It's the worst he's seen. It's probably as worst as we've seen since the late 70s or the early 80s. So, I'm not going to throw excuses out there. I'm not going to complain. Obviously, all of us wanted into this position to be able to serve, and my intention is to be able to serve boldly and to do the right things at the right time. And so, my opinion, we're going to have some hard decisions to make. I think that one of the more difficult ones is going to be, if we have $250 or $500 million shortfall. How do you take care of the roads? How do you take care of the PEIA system where we've got a $120 million shortfall there? So we're creatively looking at the budget and see what we can do to come up with ideas for savings. I've got several proposals out there that I'm working on. Won't mention them today and get into the weeds, but we have quite a lift this session that we're going to have to pull off to address a lot of these issues. One final thing that I think that we're all aware of, after, was it back in the middle of October, President Obama came to Charleston to address the drug problem, the drug addiction problem. And I think that anybody that works in healthcare here, whether it be in counseling or if they work in another type of a setting, they've realized that the drug issue here locally is an issue as well. Some parts of the state, it's absolute epidemic. I'm very familiar with a program over the last month and a half that it's a program in the state. If you want to open up a drug and rehabilitation facility to treat people that are addicted, you have to go through a certificate of need process where you have to prove a need for something in order to open up another healthcare facility. And that process is unfortunately very, very long. In fact, as long as maybe a year to a year and a half to do that. And so I'm going to be sponsoring legislation to remove that certificate of need program so we can, if an organization wants to come to West Virginia and open a business to address the drug and alcohol abuse problem in the state, that it's an easier process for them to come to the state.
I'm Dave Pethel, I'm a member of the House of Delegates. I represent the 5th Delegate District, which is all of Wetzel County and 2 precincts in the western part of Monongalia County. I want to thank the Chamber for the opportunity to be here today. I know most of you don't know me. This is the first one of these forums, breakfasts that I've been to. But I am a member on the House Finance Committee, on the Energy Committee, a minority chair of pensions and retirement, and also serve on senior citizens issues. And I certainly agree with my good friend Senator Prezioso. This will be my 24th year in the House of Delegates, and I know we both started out at the same time in the House of Delegates. And I agree with everything that he said about the budget. This is definitely going to be a very difficult budget. It's going to take leadership from both parties for us to get through this. I'm also very concerned about the PEIA issue, $120 million in benefit cuts, and then for each additional year, it's $60 million in benefit cuts. And you know, one of the reasons that we're having a difficult time to get not only teachers, but other state employees, DHHR, corrections, highways, is when you look at the salaries, we're really not competitive. But then also when you look at the benefit structure, and especially PEIA, I attended the public hearing in Morgantown and also the one in Wheeling. I can tell you that this is going to be a very big issue. As has already been mentioned about roads, I get more calls about roads in Wetzel and the western part of Monongalia County than everything else combined. And I'm certainly looking forward to the audit, to see excuse me, where we can actually save some money and hopefully work in bipartisan fashion to get more money for roads. Infrastructure is very important. Let me say in Wetzel we've had Marcellus shale drilling for around 9 years now. And people tell me, well, you have all that money, the county commission and the school board. And I tell them, yes, that's great, but they don't have a highway system to take care of. Because believe me, it is a double-edged sword. And you know, if we're going to get more businesses into the area, infrastructure is going to all be very important, along with education, educating our students that they have the skill sets for businesses want. I know you've had great growth, tremendous growth in the Morgantown area and most of Monongalia County for years, and that's tremendous. I think that that's great. I know it presents challenges, but believe me, I'd like to have some of that growth in Wetzel. Because even with the Marcellus shale, we're still losing population. And the main reason we're losing because of our infrastructure. We're an hour in any direction you go to the closest interstate or 4-lane highway, and that's not good when businesses are looking at your area. Another area I'm very concerned about the drug abuse problems that we have in this state, and you know, I certainly don't have all the answers. And let me say, you know, you can't legislate common sense. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why people, when they know that either not using prescription drugs correctly or other drugs, why they get hooked on these, because they have to know it's not good for them. But it definitely is a big problem, not only in West Virginia, but all over our country. So appreciate the opportunity to be here, and look forward to seeing you in Charleston.
Thank you, David, and thanks to all of you for coming out and looking so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. I want to thank the Chamber for inviting us and giving us this opportunity, and it was nice to hear those kind words. you can't imagine how unpleasant it was to be at those PEIA forums. But most of the time, I think most of us here feel really good about serving. We, in addition to getting complaints about roads, we get complaints about families who need some help and on, say, an insurance issue or with a state agency, and it really is gratifying. I think that's the reason we serve, is because when we are able to cut through a little bit of red tape, it feels really good. I want to talk about a couple of issues. I think, as everyone has said, the budget is our #1 priority, and one of the things all of us will be doing is trying to make sure that our local area isn't adversely affected. Our biggest thing is to make sure WVU's budget stays as intact as possible. It's really easy to take a whack at something big. And WVU has had disproportionately higher whacks in the past, years and years of them. So that's going to be, WVU is our economic engine in this area, and we need to make sure that we do everything we can to protect WVU's budget. But we also have lots of small nonprofits that, and state agencies, like David was talking about DHHR. Well, to the extent that we lose employees, that means that cases of child abuse and elder abuse are not going to be investigated as intensively because there's such a high turnover in that job, So I think, but like Health Right, they had like a 1/4 budget cut. And that's something we should be really proud of in our community, that we've been able to maintain Health Right, and we're lucky that it's here. It's not in Wetzel County, it's not in Taylor County. Health Right covers a large area, but our domestic violence shelters, they are all going to suffer when the budget goes down. So we need to be watching out for those issues. And another issue that we have worked on as a delegation, and there are a couple of related issues, safety issues, and that's something WVU is working on. We had a bill that many of us co-sponsored to do something everybody has thought we should do for years and years and years, is allow law enforcement to go into bars. And it went all the way through the House and almost all the way through the Senate, and then it got pulled at the last minute. It's time that we pass that bill. Another issue on a safety issue relates to, it's Sergeant May, right? He was, one of the things his family found out was that bars are not required to have liability insurance, which is really odd. And so we want to work on that issue as well. There's legislation that we want to push on that. An issue that I could use a little help with is a bill that was introduced at the end of last year called the LEAP bill. And that means, I gotta look what it means, local energy efficiency partnerships. And that would involve municipalities and counties working with small businesses to improve their energy efficiency. So the way it works in a couple of different ways is that counties, if they're interested and willing and they want to set up a program, would set up a plan where small businesses could do an energy audit and maybe purchase windows or insulation or a new lighting system. That's really hard for a small business. WVU did an audit and saved millions. So this would allow the bonding authority of municipalities and counties to be used along with assessments to small businesses to do those energy audits and help pay for those kind of improvements over time. We introduced that it was a bipartisan bill. At the end of the session, we didn't really move it, but we could use the Municipal Association, the Chamber, and the County Association. And actually, it's a job creator. Those are going to be installation people. Our small businesses could benefit from that. Last thing I want to mention is the tobacco tax. I am a little skeptical about how we're going to get more money for roads, but the citizens do support a tobacco tax, and we have one of the lowest tobacco taxes in the surrounding states. And maybe And if we dramatically raise the tobacco tax, like $1, we will prevent kids from smoking. I mean, I know somebody that dropped dead the other day from a heart attack who was overweight and smoking. Everyone in this room probably knows somebody whose life was shortened by smoking. But we could use it for things like to plug the hole in PEIA or for substance abuse. And it is supported by a large majority of citizens in this state. So I think that that's something we should start considering. There's a real resistance to raising taxes, and somehow people think we should just ask Charleston for money for, say, roads, but we're gonna have to start talking about things like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. My name is David Seipold, and I am a representative from the 14th District, Senator, co-senator with Bob Williams over there. What I like to tell people, usually right off the bat, is that yes, I am elected from the 14th Senatorial District, but I bear in mind that I represent the entire state of West Virginia. And we have to realize that when we're in session, every action that's taken on the floor affects the entire state. We have to look at the big pictures and work through those issues. On a little bit of a side note, I understand there's going to be a holiday tie competition later on, and I would appreciate your vote, if that would be all right. I think I'm in the running for that one. I'm not sure. I'm going to limit my comments maybe to education, because I'm a little bit more involved with education this year than I have been in the past. And I'll preface my comments with my perception of how education works in West Virginia. It's kind of like, I don't know whether you would want to call it a pyramid or maybe a Christmas tree. But when you start at the top at the governor's office and the State Board of Education and the state superintendent, and then we migrate down to the county boards of education, the county superintendents, and then down to the principals and the administration in the schools and the teachers and service personnel, and then the students, and we have this nice pyramid or triangle. And the problem with this, as I see it, the problem with this model as we look at it, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, is that the most important component of that pyramid is on the bottom, and that's the students. And I'm endeavoring, we've been working on it all summer, trying to figure out, well, how do we turn that pyramid upside down? How do we put the students on the top? And why is it that the teachers have to fight with the administration to get the tools they need to teach the students, and how come the county boards of education have to fight with the state to get the resources they need to adequately teach the students? So when we put the students first, and then we ask what support structure do we need to accomplish this goal, I think we're moving in the right direction. With that being said, a reduction of bureaucracy. West Virginia spends about $12,000 per year per pupil on education. And I hear time and time again say, we need more money in education, the teachers are underpaid, so on and so forth, not enough materials. Well, $12,000 per student per year is on par with the rest of the country. In fact, it's above the 50 percentile mark. And I would suggest to you that those dollars that are spent on education get stuck in Building 6 down in Charleston. And I think I see somebody shaking their head back there, I think they agree with me. And I think that what we need to do is make sure that we're efficiently using these funds, cut the bureaucracy down and let the teachers teach, let the funds come down to the classroom and allow them to have the resources necessary to perform their duty. Now, on the other side of that equation is, I've been a firm believer, and I think West Virginia has traditionally for the past several decades, if not longer, been a very top-down type education delivery system. I firmly believe that we need to have more local autonomy because one size does not fit all in this state. Morgantown doesn't have the same challenges that Martinsburg has, that Gilbert, West Virginia has, that Glenville has, that Burnsville has. Everybody has their own challenges. We need to have the autonomy to do what needs to be done. There is a challenge about us. There's been a new ESEA passed on the federal level. We don't know what all's in that yet. In fact, I'm just in the process of getting the write-up on that. And I'm sure that the State Department of Education will be adjusting our objectives to be in line with that, to capture those federal dollars and to make sure that we have the autonomy necessary to educate our students properly. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that are coming up later on. I'm not sure I'll have all the answers, but I will promise you if I don't have the answer, I'll do my best to find it. Thank you very much.
That was a fantastic job. 10 folks, and you all did that in less than 30 minutes. So we want to tell you thanks very much. Extremely well done. Who has the first question they'd like to pose? Somebody has to have it.
Can we go home?
Tom Bloom, who started us off this morning. Is it a question?
Actually, it's a comment to help.
You're on.
I think using Dave's comment of the Christmas tree is the way that I think Mon County has started to move, which is working together, collaborating, whether it's with the Chamber of Commerce, with the cities, with the counties. My recommendation and request is the southern part of the state is for voting as a uniform group. We now see that the Democrats aren't fighting the Republicans. It's now become the northern part of the state fighting the southern part. My recommendation to you is, could you, when you go down there, work together as a group to then combat that? Because, as you said, you're elected from us, and our areas and concerns are different than the southern part of the state. And that's all I ask you to do, is work together as a group. Maybe you can have Harrison, Marion, Preston, those counties get together as what Charleston does or that group does down to us. And if anyone wants to comment on that, that's what I'm asking you to do. Thank you.
Well, I think up an answer. I first would like to commend them for one thing that they have done, although we face a lot of issues now, especially budgetarily. The rainy day fund that you all put in effect was a great thing. We've got what, towards $1 billion, Roman? 800 million. 800 million. Thank you all for doing that, or where would we be now? Please. I'm going to bring this one.
Yeah, let me use that. It's difficult, and I struggled this morning to try to put the budget into some kind of perspective, because a lot of things are contingent on building a budget. I mean, you got to look at the past history, you got to look at the 6-year plan of where we're going, and a lot of things go in. It takes a lot of staff. It takes cooperation with both parties and things to put this budget together. And sometimes we struggle to try to put it in a 2-minute time frame. It's almost impossible. I've got statistics here that would probably bore you to death, but we've been very fiscally responsible over the past years, and we've tried to manage this budget in the best way we can and build the state as far as economic development is concerned. CNBC did a poll, and Keith Burdett presented it to us at the tax conference, at the tax committee meeting, which we're a part of. The things that we've done in the past have been very constructive in building a great business climate as far as taxes are concerned and things of that sort. Some of the regulatory regulations are really killing us, and the legal climate has put us sort of behind. But those are things we're addressing. But when we look at that budget, we've been fiscally responsible in the fact that Scott did mention the rainy day fund. We've got $800 million in that fund right now. The governor has the option to borrow $60 million at a time, and he's been doing that to try to balance it out to get us through this tough fiscal year. But I would caution you to think that the answer to our problems is the rainy day fund. There's 2 things you have to consider. First of all, it's only one-time money. We start to backfill these holes with the rainy day fund, it's gone. You're just kicking the can down the road. And the second thing you've got to be very concerned with, West Virginia is a small state. We don't have a lot of money to go out and build infrastructure. And that's one of our weak points, according to the CNBC poll. So we have to maintain a good bond rating. If we go into that rainy day fund and rate it, we're already on emergency alert right now. The bonding agencies in New York are looking very closely at our rainy day fund. If we go into that fund and start to spend down, that means the bond rating goes down, and then what happens? We can't go out to the bond market and build the infrastructure that we need. And Lord knows that's one of our downfalls, roads. We need $1 billion to patch the roads. We've got a very rural state. You know, we got a third of our citizens on Medicaid right now. Somebody has to pay for that. In 2017, we're going to see the back end of the Affordable Care Act. That's an additional chunk of money that we're going to have to come up with. So we not only have to be concerned about this year's budget, we've got to look 2, 4, 6 years down the road. And the answer is not our savings account or rainy day fund. We've spent about almost $200 million out of there right now. So I just want to caution folks, when you look at the budget, make sure that you're realistic. You know, we've got to pay for what we get. And if we're not willing to step up to the plate, then we've got to cut services.
Great. Anybody else like to add on to that subject? Who has the next easy question?
Scott.
In the back, yes. Oh, Joe Lynn.
Well, I just certainly want to say to Tom back there that I will tell you that I'm willing to work with anyone, and I'm like Dave, we do represent the state, and I think we're all willing to look at it. Now, there is somewhat, when you're successful as we are in this area right now, there is some jealousy that takes place out there. I think it's human nature. So we've got to work with people, and we certainly don't want to take that and preclude the rest of the state from being able to develop. And that was said earlier also, we want that to be able to spread that across the state, because the best way to get yourself out of a budget problem is to grow business, to get more people paying into the system. So certainly, Tom, I will tell you that I'm very much approachable, and will work with anybody from anywhere to try to find solutions to problems.
Sam Stone.
See, I view this as from the other side. I see the budget crisis we have as a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to get rid of all those government things we don't need and to focus on our real needs, which for my entire life have been jobs, education, and infrastructure. It hasn't changed in my 68 years, and we've never fixed it. We need to look at the tax structure to see how we fix the entire tax structure to address our real needs. And we've got to have the wisdom, the strength, and the courage to do that. We can't keep patching these problems.
Anybody join in?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't agree with that statement. But I wanted to sort of tack on the last discussion. And one of the opportunities that may appear and may also involve some north-south cooperation is the WVU going into Beckley. There's $100 million worth of relatively new buildings there from Mountain State University that went kaput. And that could be a real opportunity for north-south cooperation, for replicating the model, like Bob was saying. And, you know, we all have to learn a little bit more about that. WVU has scheduled a tour. We also need to worry about Montgomery, that has this long tradition of a good engineering school that will now be in Beckley, and making sure that community doesn't fall apart because of that change. But I think I think maybe the bad state of the roads is finally to a point that people were saying, I'm willing to pay. I hope that's true. But, you know, that's probably a good attitude, is how can we turn these things into opportunities?
Rob, another follow?
Yeah, you know, to the gentleman in the back,
That's 68-year-old Sam Stone.
you know,
What's that?
we're on the tax reform committee, and we're studying a lot of what happened with taxes. We're finding out that we're not bad when it comes to taxes. Over the course of the past decade, we've reduced the corporate tax rate from 9% to 6.5%. We've eliminated the business franchise tax. We've also been recognized. The 2015 State Business Climate Index shows that West Virginia is 21st in best overall taxes and 17th best in corporate taxes. We have reduced taxes. We've tried to make this state business friendly, and we're continuing to do that. But somewhere along the line, if you want services, somebody's got to pay for it.
Following up on that and what Delegate Fleshour said about West Virginia University now having such a presence in the South, there was a book written back in 1988. It was West Virginia University, a unifying force in a sectionalized state. So maybe that does hold true now more than ever. Anybody here from WVU today, or an alum emeritus from WVU, that would like to comment on what we may be able to do to bring the state together using the flagship university?
Scott, I understand one thing. I'm not suggesting we reduce taxes. I think we need to increase them to pay for the services we need and fix these problems. Or to restructure the tax system so we have the money we need.
But not just a 5% cut across everything. You're talking about picking and choosing, and not just cutting everything equally. Folks on this side of the table like to comment on anything more about the budget?
I can talk to you all day.
Dr. Chester.
Well, I have to claim that I am from West Virginia University. Been there for about, I don't know, 30 years or so. And I love our current leadership at the Health Sciences Center because it is suddenly statewide again. We have exemplary programs that cover the state, and 2 of them are represented in this room. The Center of Excellence in Women's Health, Betty Critch Parsons, and the HISTA, Health Sciences and Technology Academy. That is rural health and education across the state. So there you go. We're working on it.
Okay, well said. Ron Justice.
I know we had lunch a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, and I think just to follow up on what was said, that our outreach and our footprint should be through the entire state, and that message is being cascaded down from the top. And certainly what we're doing in Montgomery and the move to Beckley is very, very important to the entire state and to WVU. But probably to throw that in a different direction is, I think we have the attitude now is how can we help you better do your jobs, and how can we be resources, whether it's fighting, combating the problems with prescription drugs, or whether it's working with the engineering school and on highway related issues. So I think we are very, very committed to that, and we appreciate everything that you all have done for WVU, and as the message that Rob sent last week is, we're here to assist you in any way we possibly can, but we appreciate everything that you're doing for us, so thanks.
Well, Ron, first of all, I appreciate your comments, because I think if you hit on something that the question we're probably not asking. I think WVU, Fairmont State, Marshall, whoever you're talking about, has a lot of tools to put out there in the community. I think what we need from you folks in this room and others is what we can do to expedite those tools getting into the community at a faster rate. We know they're moving out there. Obviously, North Central West Virginia is a perfect example of what an institution can do for a community. But again, I think the question I'm asking you is, what can we do as legislators to help expedite the process?
I think that's a very good question, and one would be letting us know where you see those areas that we could immediately come in and help. In fact, I was on a phone call just earlier this morning, and it was a rural county asking for help in STEAM-related education. And unless we know about it, it's hard to put someone there to address the issue that they have in that county school system. So those are easy things. We have such a talented group of people at WVU, and so many resources to share. When you do see an opportunity, whatever that opportunity is, I talked to Senator Lenhart this morning about a great opportunity that he's working on an agricultural related project. But if we can plug in any way to help that, we will do that. So if you let us know where's your beck and call. Travis is actually traveling today, but Travis will be based in Charleston. Rocco Fusillo, many of you know Rocco. He's a great resource for healthcare, but many other things. So we definitely have a big commitment. And I know, I think Dan communicated this. Rob Alsop's out sick this morning to send a message, but we have a great person in Rob that can help get us into other areas of state government with his past experience, and we're very committed to doing that.
Jenny Sling.
So the city city of Morgantown and many other cities around the state have instituted fees that are directly going to support our roads. So we're going from spending $400,000 a year to spending $2 million and up on our roads locally. But many of our roads are state roads, and as part of the Chamber's committee that's looking into this, I'm wondering what specifically you all can do from the state level to actually increase the amount of resources that are spent. I'm not looking to waste resources, and I appreciate your audit, but when we really get down to it, the Chamber Committee is trying to work with you and figure out how you can all work together and come up with increase in funds to be spent on roads.
That was very dangerous.
After your statement.
Water
Sorry.
literacy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Brian Kerchava. Thanks for asking that question. I think that there's a few things that we can be looking at. One, I think Tom Bloom brought up working together as a geographic area to make sure that the appropriate amount of dollars are coming back for infrastructure, roads, types of things to the places where it should be going. Morgantown has grown a lot. Montague County's grown a lot. Harrison County, Marion County, this whole area through here with all the development that's gone in over the last decade has just really exploded. And as Joe had mentioned earlier, we are very blessed to have this type of growth. But I think sticking together makes a lot of sense. And also, I think that is how are the dollars being allocated for each road? What's the formula for deciding which part of the state or which roads get which money? Who knows that answer?
We're hoping that you
All right,
know.
Jason.
You're beating to the right. Jason does.
The people in charge make the decisions.
What's that?
The people in charge make the decisions.
There's a lot of that, and I think that's one of the things you're going to find in this audit. It's one of the big findings I think you're going to find in this audit. So I think that we have to make sure that we are, as Tom mentioned, sticking together, but also making sure the appropriate resources are going to the appropriate places based on growth and development and so forth.
Amy Summers, if I didn't mention my name earlier. Joe introduced me, and so then I let that go. But one thing I'd like to make on the roads, and you're asking about additional funding, is I see a lot of mismanagement of the current funding that we have. And if we're at a level where we don't have any more money to give to roads, we at least need to manage the money we have more properly. And I'd like to give an example. Past my house was paved a year ago. My house was just paved, the road near my house was just paved again. I thought, this is ridiculous. Of course, I've asked for a meeting, I've never got one. The gas company drilled past my house a year ago, and now another gas company is drilled, and the gas companies, as you know, will pay for the roads that they use. So why in the world would they have not taken that money that the gas company gave them and said, when that road needs paved again, we'll save this money for that and we'll utilize it for that? No, they just paved it again because they got the money from the gas company. It makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. We've all seen the double signs being replaced, and we understand that's federal money, but it doesn't matter. It's our tax dollars, whether it's state or federal, that are being mismanaged, and we need to address it.
Senator Beach.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. I apologize, I didn't stand for that last question from Mr. Justice there. There is a sort of formula that's used, and it's based on mileage and traffic count and where those monies are devoted. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that the money's being managed poorly. I would say that there's a management issue. Let me cite you an example here in Montague County. All this past summer, we all traveled Greenbag Road, when we know that thing was just riddled with potholes. So I make a phone call to the local garage, and I don't normally do that. I usually stay away from the local garage and make my phone calls to the state. The lady on the other end says, well, we don't have plans for it because there's no one who lives on that road. I'm thinking, what? There's a lot of traffic on that highway. So I call our good friend in Clarksburg, Marvin, and many of you who deal with transportation issues know Marvin. He's a great guy to work with. Marvin immediately gets on the phone to the local guy and says, hey, get up out of your chair, take a drive out Greenbag Road and tell us what's going on. Well, boom. Once that report went back in, 2 weeks later, we have a paved road. So I think it's more of a management issue here on a local level. And I think as leaders in this community, whether it be county commissioners, city council, or legislators, personally, I don't like to get involved in personnel issues, but I think we need to ask for personnel change in our local garage.
Dr. Witt?
I have a different question. As we know responsibility is not to shift from Charleston down to the local level. We have seen the experience of the municipal home rule system. And we now have many cities flocking to Charleston to have more flexibility at the local level. I think something similar ought to be considered at the county level. Why not county home rule? I'd like to have your opinions on why not giving counties the option to have home rule.
We should have 10 opinions. Who would like to start?
I will tell you that I'm already on the record that I would support legislation to do that. We have to work that out. And again, I will say that jealousy will come into play in this area. Simply when you start talking about this issue, quickly the city municipality league comes forward and they may challenge as to whether we would give that rule out to the county simply for the same fact that they would be afraid of how that would affect them and how they could do business. So you have to look at those issues and work with them. But just simply put, there's two issues that I'm on board with to help this area and the region. And I would give counties the home rule to allow them to make decisions. And I'm also on board with the local bill that's been proposed out of the Chamber of Commerce here. We simply must do something to help ourselves. And I'm not saying to take that duty upon ourselves totally, but we should be rewarded if we're willing to go out there and do some things, that we would be also get some additional funds that comes from the state and the federal. We can't simply do it on our own, but those that's willing to work, and I think you see this system working with the SBA in the state, in the building of schools. The ones that usually gets the money from the SBAs are the communities that's able to raise resources to match those funds to help themselves some. And that's simply all I'm asking for, is the ability to have some help in matching and what we do, because we've got to address our infrastructure problems.
Senator Beach.
Tom, to address the question, I would be in favor of exploring the idea of home rule for counties if we pursued it the same way we did with the municipalities, where a board is set up, those test communities, if you want to call it test counties, 2 or 3 counties are put into this experiment. They have to apply, just like the old process. They also have to go through a board with any new mechanisms they want to, explore. And when it comes down to tax issues, I think just like the municipalities, if I'm correct, Jenny, you have to take something off the books in order to put something on the books in certain situations. So yeah, I think if we follow that plan and then review it in 5 years, just like we did with the municipalities, I think it's something we could truly explore.
Yes, Frank.
Yeah, one of the big problems that we have in the state, unfortunately, is that we continue to lose population. And I just looked at a report yesterday with Dr. Frank Devano, our superintendent of schools, that indicated that only 5 or 6 counties in the state gained population in their school system over the past year. All of the other counties have actually lost, and the net loss in students in public schools in our school systems was actually a little over 2,000 this past year. And so when I look at our work participation rate being below 50% now, I begin to think about the struggles that we're going to have in the future if we don't do a better job in retaining our citizens and helping them to become more productive. There are 2 big reasons that people leave the state of West Virginia. One is for jobs and the other one is for death. We can't do a whole lot about death, unfortunately, but I think we can do some things about jobs. So I would like to ask you, and I'm, by the way, happy on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and just as a citizen of West Virginia to help with this, but I'd like to ask you, what is being done, what can be done with either Secretary Burdett's office or other affiliations to attract them to come here and help hire our young people so that they can stay here, they can grow a family here, and raise their families here and live here for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave Seifold here. I think that we've already started addressing that last legislative session, and for the most part, over the last 4 or 5 legislative sessions, by trying to make West Virginia a more business-friendly state. One thing that comes to mind was brought up by Senator Prezioso just a moment ago. The reduction of the corporate net income tax. We were way out of line. We were up 9.25%, I think. Now we're down about 6.5%. It took about 6 years to implement that. The franchise tax has been eliminated, a tax which was inherently unfair. You know, we've taken care of some of the taxation issues. We've started tackling some of the tort issues, some of the court reform issues. I think we have a long list of things that the majority is looking at for this next legislative session. And I think until the environment is created that makes a business want to come here and realize that they can actually turn a profit and not have the pantsuit off of them, we're going to have a hard time encouraging, you know, meaningful development, meaningful industry. But I think the stage is set, and hopefully moving forward, we're going to see that change in the tide.
Thank you. I'd like to take a little different tack. I think that one of the things we really need to do is think about our own solutions to our problems instead of expecting somebody to come in and rescue us from out of state. One of the things that I don't think is very well known is how much money the Affordable Care Act has brought into West Virginia. I think most of you would be shocked to know that it's $638 million every single year. So just think what our economy would have been like without that money that was spent on healthcare in our communities to make people better, to get the first exam that some people have had in years, and to get the preventive care that people needed. There is one of the things I'm excited about, and Amy Summers is now our Vice Chair of Health and Human Resources. I'm the Minority Chair. Is an initiative that's going on at WVU called Last to First Together, and she mentioned about Chris mentioned about the leadership at WVU. That is an experiment looking at other states. Like Alaska had a very big jump in their well-being index, and everybody knows that that's not where we are shining, is in our healthcare. And this is going to be very data-driven. It started out with one county, which is Harrison. It was picked because it was medium in sort of scores, and it's also expanded to Lewis, which is lower. And as Kent was saying, you know, we have opportunities for expanding nursing into our rural areas. That's an area where we could do this ourselves. You know, we are educating nurses. We are educating healthcare, all different kinds of healthcare professionals, physician's assistants. And so I think that we need to not just think in the traditional ways. I'm not a great big believer in the trickle-down theory. I'm not so sure that worked by lowering taxes, that everything would get better. We have been years and years and years lowering taxes, and I'm not seeing a lot of job increases. But that being said, we are going to all have to work together and think of new ways, and I would like to see us working, you know, to build up the businesses that are here and to retain them and to make things better for them. And one area where we have a lot of room to improve is healthcare.
Thank you very much, Senator. And then we'll have to begin to conclude. Senator?
Oh, good deal. I want to add on to what Senator Seifold talked about, some of the reforms that you've started seeing. The state chamber put out a pamphlet on the highlights of the 2015 legislative session. And one thing that's actually been a deliverable I'd like to point out is insurance rates. Some of the legal reforms that were passed in the last legislative session, bipartisan, total support from both sides of the aisle. The Senate President Cole sent a letter to all the insurance carriers, and he got an email back from Progressive saying we're going to lower our rates 11% because of the reforms that you did. Now, lowering insurance rates, and that's going to trickle down because it's going to be competitive, so we expect to see some of the other insurance companies, carriers within West Virginia start lowering their rates. And we should start seeing those things happen throughout West Virginia, not only in the automobile insurance. We should start seeing that in commercial insurance. We should start seeing it in our own homeowners insurance. So those are real savings. Those are real deliverables that every West Virginian is going to feel. We've looked at, if you look at what West Virginia has to offer, we're centrally located. We have natural resources. We've got beauty beyond belief. We've got people that are willing to work hard and put to work as long as they have a job. We're centrally located, and the estimates range from 30 to 80% of the population of the United States is within 1 day's drive. There's no reason West Virginia can't be thriving, but it's going to take, like Delegate Pethel mentioned, we're all working together, and I think you've seen a spirit here today. We're looking for those get it out of Charleston, push it down to the local level. We're looking for those solutions. We need to hear from you on that. I even went and attended a county commissioners meeting over in the Eastern Panhandle to see what their thoughts are, because even though we are a very diverse state, we have some of the issues are the same statewide, and some of the issues are very regional. So we have to go around and we have to make sure, and I know there's a tug of war between the North and the South, as Commissioner Bloom mentioned. Wait till you see the highway stuff coming up next time with where's there going to be a toll road and where there's not going to be a toll road. We're going to have all those hard issues that we're going to have to face here coming up in the next legislative session. But I do appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate the questions. I know all of us do. And we look forward to hearing from you. And I think every one of us on this table is open and we're out there. We're there. We're accessible to the folks of West Virginia. So thank you very much.
Thank you. See, Jack is standing, Ashley's standing, Dan is standing, and I think, Frank, you're supposed to stand and come up, correct? To bring us to conclusion. As he makes his way up here, I just wanted to thank everybody for letting me join you this morning. It's been a great discussion. It really has been a great discussion. And thank you all again as citizen legislators for all you do above and beyond for our area, and as you said, Dave, for our state. Dan?
Will you all join me first in thanking Scott for doing such a great job. And now our guest. Before I turn this mic over, I only get to do this like a couple more times, I think. We've developed quite a pattern of doing this the last couple years, my chairman and I. But I do want to say to all of you, Monongalia County Day at the Legislature this year is January 13th, the first day of the legislative session. So we'll be down there that day. We'll be hoping to have time with you all. We'll be bringing you lunch that day, compliments of Pace Enterprise with the help of the CVB and others across the community. So we look forward to that. Mark your calendar, January the 13th. Pardon?
First day of session.
First day of session. The very first day this year. We normally grab the second day, but our schedule got changed. So I'm also asked, and will you join me in thanking, let's take a moment and say, will you join me in thanking MAP and Holly Childs for their joining with us today in this effort. And then also My Bank First United, who helped sponsor our day. You have mugs at your table, and they are to take with you, if you will. I'm supposed to let you know that.
The red ones.
The red ones, yeah. And on that note, before I do this, Will you join me in thanking Jack Thompson? He has been a staff person extraordinaire, and he goes over and beyond, and he's here early. And also, I think Spencer may still be in the building here somewhere. Will you join me in thanking my staff? Okay, without further ado, I have had the great pleasure of having worked with this gentleman for the last 2 years. He has brought a lot of energy. He has pushed us forward at times. He has pulled us forward at times. But his constant message is that we move forward. And so will you join me and thank him for his service over the last couple of years. Will you welcome for our closing Frank Vitale.
Well, this is one of my final events as chair, and I do want to thank Dan and Jack and Ashley and Spencer and all the folks at the Chamber. It's really been a great opportunity over the past 2 years to serve, and I'll continue to certainly serve with all of you and with all of you. You know, we may not always agree on the issues and how we should vote and proceed, but there is one thing that I believe unequivocally, that everyone in this room, and I know every one of you, everyone in this room loves West Virginia. And we should be proud of that. Every one of us in this room works hard every day, whether it's through private business, through public service, the public sector. We all come together every day to improve health care, to improve infrastructure, to improve the lives and education of our children. We work hard every day to do that. And that's something that we should be very, very proud of. You know, I have to say that when I look at our representatives, one of the things that we have to understand is that this group of people have one of the toughest jobs in the country. Many legislatures have it easy. They have big corporations in their backyard. They have a lot of money to work with. They have a lot of resources to work with. These folks work hard with what they have to work with. And I think one of our greatest resources is our people. I think you would all agree with that. But each of you, and you know, I think about all the good work that you do, helping our veterans and making the best out of what you have to work with, improving our education and our infrastructure. And, you know, and I like what you said, Dave, that first and foremost, we represent the state of West Virginia. And I think you all believe that, and I know you work hard to do that every day. Leading in the good times is kind of an easy and fun thing to do. But true leadership is defined by our adversity and the tough times. And you all have proven to lead effectively and efficiently in the tough times. And you're striving every day to make that even better. So I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to wish you well as you go into session. I want to wish you happy holidays. And on behalf of the Chamber, our Board of Directors, our committees, and our over 400 businesses that we represent, I just want to say thank you for your service, and God bless you and your families. Thanks.
Well done. That, in fact, was going to close it until I just learned something. So will you all join me in one last round of applause as they participated this day, My Bank First United. I also understand that one of their leaders is going to start trying to enjoy a little bit of retirement life in about 2 weeks. Dave Kelly, who shared with Thank you. I don't know our legislators' schedules. I know often they've stayed around and conversed personally. Mix and mingle. Thank you.